The MVP race is heating up, and I'm here to tell you why Joker's 60-point triple-double means absolute squat.
Welcome back to Life in the Stands. We got Jake and Zach on the podcast today. We're really excited to jump into the NBA MVP race. It's been heating up. There's a lot of debate between Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Nikola Jokic, rightfully so. Both guys have great cases. Remember to like and subscribe. Let us know in the comments which guy you think deserves to win MVP this year. And let's jump right into the discussion. We'll start right off the bat. Jake is an SGA guy. I'm more of a Jokic guy. So we just set the scene for this conversation moving forward. But I'll let you take the first crack at it here. Why should SGA win MVP this year?
So first of all, I think we need to define what the MVP is and what it means. It's obviously the most valuable player, but it is how much that individual player produces and means to a certain team. Now, SGA is leading his team number one seed in the West once again. I was a fan of SGA last year as well as a candidate for MVP and winning it all last year. Certainly he did not, but I think this is his year. He's one of the best two-way players in the league, however, also leads, I believe, the league in scoring too. And he does it with maybe even just 3/4 of play, if you break it down that way. So I think that's impressive in its own. But then if you look at the comparison between SGA and Joker, and just the Thunder versus the Nuggets, they're 17 and a half games ahead of the Nuggets in the West. So I think that discrepancy needs to mean something, because the Nuggets are fighting for a 4 or 5 seed in the West, and the Thunder don't even have to worry about dropping out of the 1 seed in the West this year like they did last year.
Yeah, the Thunder as a team are far and above any other team in the NBA at this point. I think even the Celtics, you could say at this point, or the Cavs, or whoever you want to pick out of the East. You have to say the Thunder are the best team in the NBA at this point, but I think that goes against Shai's MVP consideration because he's playing on by far the best team if you look at everything else around him too. There's a lot of pieces in OKC. I think another thing that's interesting too, you bring up the third quarter comment. Shai's scoring just from the first 3 quarters alone would be enough to put him top 5 in scoring in the league, which is crazy. But Jokic is also averaging close to 30 points a game. And he's also averaging, 13 assists and 10 rebounds? Or I'm sorry, the other way around. 13 rebounds, 10 assists. He's averaging a triple-double, which we've seen only, twice before in NBA history. Both guys won MVPs. He's doing it only 3 less minutes than SGA. So you could make the quarters argument. The Thunder are obviously playing, blowout games where Shai doesn't have to play a lot in the fourth. But that means he's still putting up 30-plus minutes in the first 3 quarters, which is still he's barely coming off the floor. Whereas Jokic will put up maybe 3 to 4 more minutes a game than him, but walk away with a ton more productivity.
So I understand the points you're making. However, SGA is second in usage rate in the NBA. So I feel like you have to look at how he's being used and how much a team really depends on him. He's the engine that is leading them 17 and a half ahead of the Nuggets. Now you can talk about efficiency with Joker because he is probably a better playmaker. And at this point, I'd put him as probably the best playmaker in the league at this point. And I feel like you have to. It's the consistency in his body of work that you have to look at. I just think another point that you made isn't exactly valid. I understand your point in the Thunder maybe having the better team, but SGA had to do this without Chet for majority of the year, who people consider being their second or third option. So he does have a lot of quality role players, but I feel like without a second or third star, you are dependent on a lot more, and people expect you to lose more games than you win, and the Thunder kept a steady pace, which is where they're at right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to beat the Thunder are the best team in the NBA argument, right? So I hear you there. And SGA has been the best player by far on the best team, which is the Thunder. But I just still think you have to look at Jokic as an individual player. I mean, there have been cases before in the MVP race where a 17-game split hasn't decided the MVP race, right? Because in previous Eastern and Western conferences, there could be MVPs that are on 1 through 8 seeds, really, like any team that made the playoffs. If you look back. So even though this year it seems like such a crazy discrepancy because the Thunder are all alone up there as the one seed with 60 plus wins already, while everyone's trying to get to 50 still in the West. Like I don't think if you look historically, like that game difference for choosing an MVP actually is like that crazy. On top of that, SGA also I think has like the claim to fame on defense. And something that gets talked about a lot is Jokic's defense. On that end of the floor, people say that he's a liability. He's top three in the NBA in steals per game right now. He averages 1.8 steals per game. Shai averages 1.7. So, I mean, basically the same, but Jokic is less and less a liability defensively as well, which you probably couldn't have said that in previous years.
I will not lie to the people. I was on that argument of Joker not being the best defender as of last year.
And me
I
too.
haven't said any. Yeah, I haven't said anything this year. Um, I think something you're looking into too far though is Joker's overall stats and body of work. Because one of your points was averaging the triple double, of course. And those two that have done it, Joker and Russ, have won MVPs. There is a certain scenario. The year that Derrick Rose won his MVP, I believe 2011, was against LeBron. And if you read off the stats, let me pull them up here for you. 25, 8 assists, 4 rebounds for D Rose. He was the youngest MVP to ever win it, and a lot of people believe that LeBron still should have won and got snubbed because he averaged 27, 8, and 7, roughly. And if you look at those stats, obviously, and what the Miami Heat were, you're taking away from LeBron because of the surrounding pieces, right? And D Rose had to lead his team. Again, SGA doesn't have the best stats, but he is leading his team because he's depended on, much like D Rose was. So I think that's not exactly what voters look for in regards to their MVP. It's not always the stats, and I feel like you're about the stats right now.
Yeah. I will say there's one other person that posted a triple double for the season and won MVP. I believe that's Oscar Robertson. I believe he won MVP in the season that he did that. But I'm really glad you brought up LeBron and Derrick Rose in 2011. And the reason I'm really glad you brought LeBron up in 2011 with Derrick Rose is because there is such a thing as voter fatigue. And I feel like in the NBA MVP race, that is probably like the award in professional sports that experiences the most voter fatigue because it's the entire NBA season. Every single game influences like exactly what the outcome of the MVP race should be. You have games like Jokic's 61-point triple double where everyone's like that should make him the MVP, and then Shai obviously has had multiple 50-point games where after every single one of those like he should be the MVP, right? There is voter fatigue. I think we are experiencing it with Nikola Jokic just like we did with LeBron back in 2011, right? Because I think it's pretty well known that LeBron should probably have like 2 or 3 more MVPs than he does. If you look back at the course of his career and what
Even
he's
if you look at
averaged,
other guys like Shaq and Kobe and all them too, they did the same thing there. So I
yeah,
agree with you. But
100%. So I think we're at that point with Jokic. I think we're at that point with Jokic. So even though I would vote for Jokic as MVP, I can easily see why SGA could win it this year, much like Embiid did in the middle there, because there was voter fatigue for Jokic then already. I just think it's gotten worse this year. But I do think, like, I mean, you say statistically isn't that big of a deal, but statistically, this has been Jokic's like best season.
and it could very well be the problem with NBA awards and voting, especially this award specifically, like you said, with the fatigue. Um, I'm still going to side on the part of SGA, but I do believe that that is a thing, especially when media gets some votes in there as well, because they're all about the hype too. So now I bet you any money they're swaying towards Joker. If SGA drops a 50-point game in the next couple of days, we're going to be talking about him again. So I feel like it's a very momentum-based thing. And you also talk about probably the same couple of names being in the MVP race over like a 5 to 10 year period most times.
Right.
So there's definitely going to be voter fatigue. You could have voted LeBron MVP for like 10 years straight. They just didn't care enough. And media didn't care enough. They knew what it was. He was making the NBA Finals. He's
Yeah.
already going to get something out of it. But overall, SGA is going to win this one. I think he should win this one. And one final comment, because there is something that triggers me the most. I feel like if Joker does win, I feel like a lot of people are going to discredit SGA because they think he's a free throw merchant.
I won't call him a free throw merchant, but what I will say is that SGA primarily is a scorer, right? Like if you look statistically, like, that's what he does, and he is the engine that drives that Thunder team. But he's a scorer, whereas Jokic impacts the game on multiple levels in multiple ways, all over the place, right? Going back to another MVP race in 1990, actually, Michael Jordan averaged over 33 points a game, just under 34 points a game. 33, 7, and 6 is what he averaged in that season. He put up his career high in that season of 69 points as well. And he did not win MVP. He lost to Magic Johnson. Magic Johnson for the year averaged 22, 12, and 7. So almost 11 less points per game, but way more assists and just about the same amount of rebounds, but was pushing that triple-double margin. We have Jokic averaging a triple-double. He's only 2 or 3 points per game behind Shai.
And this was what, the 89-90 season?
This is
That's
the
what that
89-90
was?
season, yeah. So I think if you look historically too, there's a case to be made for like Jokic has all of the well-rounded stats. Shai is a scorer. There's a piece to that too, but
Yeah, that also wasn't exactly. People are going to be mad at me for this. Wasn't exactly prime Jordan either. And if everybody remembers, Magic Johnson did run the league for a while. So I think that's kind of where the momentum was at the time. If you want to talk about momentum and like voters fatigue, that kind of thing,
yeah,
Magic Johnson was still the one that had the momentum and the popularity with that. And Michael Jordan got his fair share of MVPs. It just wasn't going to happen that year because everybody knew what Magic Johnson was. That's all I'm going to say. Now, that does kind of favor you a little bit in regards to Joker and that voter fatigue, but it's not going to happen. SGA is going to win.
yeah. I think that SGA's knocking on the door year was last year because I think you could have made a reasonable case that he should have won it last year. And again, I bring up the Embiid case, but I feel like the year that Jokic won before Embiid was Embiid's better year. Like he should have won it that year, and Jokic should have won the year that Embiid won. But voters were too fatigued to vote in either way. And I feel like the same thing's happening now with SGA and Jokic. We're like, don't get me wrong, both phenomenal seasons from both guys. But if we look back at the two seasons, we probably would switch these MVPs. Like when we're looking back at everything, that's what we probably do.
I could agree, but I also think it makes it so tough when you're going to vote. And I'm happy I don't have an actual vote because SGA is having a better season than he had last year, and Joker's having a better season than he had last year. It's all career high numbers across the board, basically, for both players. And it's hard to give respect to everybody when you have to give out one award.
Yeah.
So it's just so tough.
Yeah. I like what you said about not discrediting people, though. I think that's going to be a big thing. Either way, just celebrate the crazy talent that's in the league. So, with that, though, it's been another episode of Life in the Stands. Really appreciate y'all hanging out, watching, listening. Remember to like and subscribe. Let us know down in the comments who you think should win NBA MVP this year. Let us know why as well. We'd like to chat with you guys in the comments. So, really let us know what your argument is. And we will see you on the next episode.